If you're a guest this morning, you are in a great place, a safe space. This is our house. This is our family. Welcome. You've just joined and are part of our family. So we just want to say hey and welcome you. Man, it's been just a great couple of weeks. Anybody else pollen getting you? You know, it's starting to come in. Nasal cavities, you know, it's just getting good already. So woke up this morning, I was like, hello, pollen season. It has arrived. But if you're a guest with us this morning, the last couple of weeks, we've been in a series called Friends Like Family. In the last 3 weeks, we've just kind of walked through and talked about what it looks like to be in community, to be basically just face-to-face, story-to-story, and just sharing what is going on in our lives and the blessing and the benefit that comes with that. And that when we say yes to Jesus, that it's actually the beginning of a journey that he takes us on, which includes other people. That you're not meant to just be saved and alone, but you are saved into a family, and that family supports and cares. It's a body. It's the body called the church. It's the church called the bride that Jesus is coming back for, that is what Jesus is building. That's what he set in motion. And so the last 3 weeks, we've been talking about that. That church is about community. It's about knowing each other and serving each other and having grace for each other when we get on each other's nerves sometimes. You know what I mean? Nobody else, just me. I get on everybody's nerves. You got to have grace for me then, you know, so it's good. Second service, you good? You awake this morning? We're going to do something a little bit different. Our theme verse the last 4 weeks, if we can throw that up, is 1 Thessalonians chapter 2. It says, so we cared for you. And this is Paul, and he's writing a letter to the church. And what he's saying is, hey, we cared for you because we loved you so much. We were delighted to share with you not only the gospel, but our lives as well. And so Paul writes this verse, and he's telling this church, he says, hey, I didn't want to just share the gospel. I didn't want to just share the good news of Jesus. I didn't want to just share all this new creation, this new step. I didn't want to just share that. I also wanted to share my life. I wanted you to know Paul. I want you to know Jesus, and I want you to know Paul. And so there's this intimate relationship that happens between a church and Paul when they begin to know each other, begin to kind of hear each other's story, and they get to look face to face and kind of get to know each other's names and how many kids you have and what you're going through and all of those things. And so this morning, or I guess afternoon, I'm really excited because we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm about to invite 3 other amazing leaders up here with me in just a second, and we're just going to be able to hear their story. Is it cool if they share some of their life with you today and just what God has done and just talking about community and friends like family and what that looks like? And so can I get Evan, Candy, and Alex, can you guys come on? Can we give them like the biggest hand ever? So good. These are 3 amazing leaders. Yeah, bring out the tissues, man. First service taught us something, didn't it? Yeah, so it's awesome being able to. What happened? I missed it. Oh, okay, he's gonna be all right. We're gonna get through it together, boo. We're all right. Man, these are just 3 of the most amazing leaders, friends, like family that I know. Just a little bit about them. Alex is one of our elders here. He and his wife are part of the elder team. Yeah, come on, we can give it up for that. Y'all, he prays for you all the time. You don't even know him, but now you see his face, and now you know he's praying for you. This man is praying for you. He's covering our church. He's covering your pastor and my wife, and he's just laying it out for us, and so he's been a huge encouragement and blessing to us. And then right next to him is Candy, who's our Next Steps director here on staff. Just started this month. And is already crushing it, you know, has just turned the lobby into something that people can get together and communicate and have friends like family right here on a Sunday. So she's fantastic. And then this is one of my best friends for the last 4 years. Name's Evan Dyke, y'all. So we're going to give it up to him. But just kind of, I feel like I already just introed you, but just, do you want to just share something about yourself? Maybe that somebody doesn't know. Just say hello and say what's up.
Hello, I'm Alex. 42 years old. We've been coming to GrowLife for almost 4 years now. Very happy. This is our home, and home forever. Thank God.
I'm Candy. I've been coming to GrowLife for about 8 years now. I host a life group on Sunday afternoons that I would love to invite you to, and this place is my home.
My name's Evan. I'm married to my beautiful wife, Kelsey, and I get to lead a life group inside of Candy's home, high school boys.
Well, what?
The frat?
So this morning, the whole goal is really just to share the lives and the benefit that each of them have found in community, and just gotten to know a little bit about their story, and I hope it's okay. I'd like for you to hear a little bit. They're willing to share their story with you. And so I want to go to the very beginning, before Jesus, especially for Alex and Evan. You didn't really grow up knowing Jesus for most of your life, and then you had a moment where you encountered him, and that changed kind of the trajectory of where you were going. So I guess we can start with Alex, if you don't mind, and then just kind of go down the line. But what was that moment for you? What was it like before even Jesus?
Or like you say, Matt, I grew up in a home where God, the name of God was there, church was there, but not the meaning of it. We honestly went to church because that was the right thing to do, and once in a while, it was just a requirement. We live our lives. I live my life. Yes, like a normal life. Parents passed away when I was very young. Moved to the country here when I was 20 years old, learned the language, and live a life here. I thought I had everything. It was needed at the time. We moved to Florida, and we had our home. Got our kids were settled. And then one day, we got a lot of friends, by the way. We got a lot of friends. We got probably 40 friends, at the time, and we all gather every week in my house. And
He's a popular guy. He's a popular guy.
We went through that, and it was a lot of friends. It was nice, right? And we got the perfect life. However, one day, lost my job, lost my house. We lost everything, and the day we have to move to another state, literally, we have to hire a couple of guys to come and help me back in the truck. I had no friends. At the same time, we was nowhere. We didn't believe in anything really. Moving forward into that, I found that I need to stand ground. And then down in Texas, we started going to church, Christian church, and that's the first time I encountered a community. I have many flaws in my life. I live a life of addictions, all kind of them. But then I found Jesus all the time, found community in a way. I was not fully committed, honestly. This has been a process for the past 7 years, becoming a real follower. So I gave my life to Jesus literally 3 years ago here in GrowLife, when I found the real community. And that's where we are.
Amen. So come on, let's give it up. So where were you before you moved to the States?
I was born in Colombia.
So you're born in Colombia, and you moved to
The States when I was 19, 20, almost.
Okay, so 19, 20. You're 19, 20-year-old,
Yes.
basically young guy. I don't know what to go, young adult, and you moved to
New Jersey.
New Jersey, and then you ended up in Texas.
And then I ended up in Florida, Texas.
Okay, and then you ended up in Florida. And then when
back.
you moved, you had shared about the 40 friends. So you moved from Texas to Florida, and basically you had to hire some people because you didn't have anybody around you.
Yeah.
What happened there?
What happens is that we had a perfect life, like I said before, knowing that we have money. Yeah, we had a house. It was all lies. Honestly, it was a fake life. For the world, our finances were perfect. Inside the house, it was a mess. We are in a great debt at that time, and still working on it. But that's what we had at the time. But the world didn't know about that. We got friends because they all were walking our home. But the day we really need, as a family, we need a friend to encounter, to count with. No one was there. I have to pay somebody to help. So that was the life before Jesus.
Okay. And then Evan, I've known Evan since we used to work together at Moffitt Cancer Center. We were valets together, so anybody that came to visit the hosptal, we would run up and down and get your cars all day, rain or shine. You know, you just wore an extra jacket that absorbed all the rain, so you were extra wet. It made no sense, but we did it. And so, you know, I know, but just share kind of the background leading up to encountering Jesus.
Sure. So I grew up in a small town about 2 hours south from here called Fort Myers Beach. I grew up in a broken family. My parents were divorced when I was 3 years old, so I didn't really have the traditional Christmases and birthdays. They were always split between my mom and dad, and both my parents kind of struggled with alcohol abuse and drug addiction, and it was pretty rough life growing up. And so during my elementary years, my mom was in and out of prison. I lived with my dad in other people's houses. I pretty much grew up on a couch, and it was tough. And eventually, my dad passed away when I was 15 years old, and I had to move back in with my mom. And a couple of years later, she ended up going back to prison, and I was on my own again. So I grew up pretty independent because I had to be. I grew up real quick, you know. And after my dad passed away, I was, you know, the only man in the house, and that's tough when you're young, when you don't really know what you're doing. And I ended up going to community college. Ended up, you know, living on my own when I was 17 or 18, and not with my mom because she had her own struggles, and I just couldn't be near that. So I grew up on my own, and then I went to USF, and that's where life kind of hit me in the face again. I was driving to work, and I got a call from a state trooper. That my mom had been in a car accident. And she wasn't driving, she was actually walking across the street, and she had gotten hit. And I had to go to the hospital, and she was on life support. And I had to grow up again. I had to, you know, meet with the doctors and figure out what we're doing. And basically, she had no chance of being a human again. She was basically a vegetable, and I had to make the call to pull the plug. I didn't share that first service because it's pretty painful, but you know, life can suck, and that was the sucky moment. And but eventually, I ended up working with Matt and Justin at this valet, and I'm the friend that ran the car into the wall. If you were here a couple weeks ago when he was talking about it. Busted my eye open, had 8 stitches. I was bleeding all over the place. It's a funny story now, but back then it hurt a little bit. But yeah, so then I kind of ran into Matt and Justin. When I look back, it's not by chance. It was definitely orchestrated by Jesus. And I look back at my whole entire life. You know, he was always there. I didn't recognize him, but I can now. So, but that's where I kind of found community, and that's where my story started.
Yeah. And you ran a car into the wall.
I did, yeah.
That's a big deal, y'all. We need to not move past that. Let's, you know. No, it's good. We're friends. It's okay. So then we get to the point where each of you have found community, and at one point at least needed community. And maybe we'll just go straight down the line because I know, Candy, you got a ton of stories just about community surrounding you guys. What was it like to have community kind of surround you? What was the difference? So you come to know Jesus, but then there's this next step of when you're called to Christ, you say yes to him, and then he plugs us into church and into community. That's how it works. And so that there's so many things we can't do. We talked about it last week that we can't do without each other. You can't serve one another if you're by yourself, right? You can't pray for one another if you're by yourself. And so there's all these commands where Jesus is saying, pray for one another, serve one another, wash each other's feet. We just talked about that last week. And you can't do that by yourself. So you find community and needed community. What does that look like? What was the benefit of that for you in those different moments of your life? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think community found me because you guys were walking out the life of you guys are called to. When I first kind of ran into Matt and Justin, and they invited me to play football, and they invited me to Monday Night Hangouts, which is just basically a giant life group where we just watched football, had food, played games. And before that, I was kind of alone and didn't really want community, kind of took life and just did it myself. But what they were showing me was that they were just loving on me, someone who they didn't really know, someone who was broken, who was lost, who was just out of it. And they showed me what it was like to have Jesus in them. And I think that's what attracted me to the community and what attracted me to eventually give my life to Jesus. So
I think we'll have Candy go next, but I think sometimes when you don't know somebody's story, it's so easy to judge the book by its cover. Like to us, he was just the guy that ran the car into the wall. Like if anything, we were like, dude, how do you run a car into the wall? Like he was that guy to the rest of the staff, the guy that like obviously doesn't know how to park, and you're a valet. Like that's what it was for us. And then when you get to know his story, and you get to hear the background of where he's coming from, and he's eventually just became the guy that came to hang out and watch football and play football. But then getting to hear the story in the background, when we begin to see people the way that Jesus sees people, we'll look past the behavior and start seeing the story. And we start seeing what God is doing in that person instead of the way that they're behaving towards us. And it's a game changer. And so just being able to surround with community has been huge. And yeah, Candy.
Can you repeat that question again?
Just a time you needed community and it
Okay.
surrounded
All right,
you,
that's
and
it.
yeah,
I just wanna make
your
sure.
whole life,
My whole life.
you're a community person.
Yeah, I'm a community. We bring a community everywhere we go.
Yeah.
The last couple of years, about 2.5, 3 years of my life have been full of some very difficult transitions. My life group, the community that's been here with me, has really come alongside of me and held me up. When Matt was talking about, Moses and Aaron and holding the arms up, it really resonates with me, that there just have been times I feel that God brought people into my life that maybe had walked a similar path, things that had happened that I could look at them and see, like, I'm going to be okay, like, I'm not going to die from this, like, I think I'm going to be all right. And, it looks different for everybody. I think sometimes people feel like they have to have, like, amazing words of wisdom. And, sometimes it was just laughing together, just a distraction from a hard week. We ate so much chips and queso at my house, I can't even tell you. And other times it looked like really praying for me being able to be transparent and say, I am really struggling. And it's just like they're waiting for me to ask and, rush in to help me. And my community couldn't really change my circumstances. They made it a lot sweeter and a lot easier to live with.
That's a good word.
Like I said before, the journey started about 7 years ago for me, and it's not an easy journey. Giving your life to Jesus or following God, it's a journey. And for me, it has been where I have a lot of baggage, a lot of addictions, that were normal in my life, or just cultural normal things that we do, and it was okay. Today, for me, it's not okay. However, they were. And like I said, the journey has been 7 years, and 3 years ago, I one of those addictions really hit my home, and I'm here today because my marriage is alive today because of this community. Didn't share this before, but 3 years ago, I almost lost my marriage. I almost lost my home 7 years ago, financially, which, that comes back. You work hard and you get a house. It doesn't matter. But when you're hearing the people that love you and you might lose them, that really hurts. And literally, the marriage was safe because we had a community here. I came up, I asked for help. Somebody listened right away. Somebody help us with counseling. Somebody sent us to friends. Some friends came up and did group meetings, sessions, groups, one-on-one help. We're talking about relationships where a man is coming and taking his time off from his job and taking and spending with you just to help you with your problems, as a man. We're talking about pride, the prideful man was here, the macho man was acting, and it was time to let that go. And I'm so glad that, Jesus is the one helping me through this. And I think he's always there, just we don't see the signs, we don't pay attention to the signs. And I'm just so blessed to have friends in a community that was there for me, was there for our family, and our family is still here together and stronger in a house full of God because the community.
I think it's just key. Like, there's so many of us go through things, and I know we all have different walks, and we're all different ages and all on different journeys. But what I love about this is that community church is found at any age and any gender and any group. It's not, I think sometimes we can make excuses and be like, oh, well, because you're in your 20s, you have time to do that. Oh, because you don't have kids, you can do that. Oh, because you're retired, you have the opportunity to do that. But you just find that in every walk of life, Jesus doesn't say that when you're retired, then you can be a part of the body. He doesn't say when you retire, you get to leave the body and just do what you want to do, but that we serve one another and we care for one another in every season of life and walking through that together. And so I've seen each one of you house and create community. I don't know if you all have something that you want to share or not. You don't have to, but what is knowing how powerful Jesus and the body of Christ has been to each one of you personally. Now you are leading and creating environments where people are able to come and grow and learn and receive the benefit that you had once been a part of and needed. Now you're creating that environment to continue to see that happening all over the place. So I know you've led Alex, an amazing student life group this past season. Evan's leading a current student life group for high school boys to really just be able to open up and have authentic conversation. And Candy's house is filled with 804,654 million people all the time. Yes. And so, I mean, and if we all have busy lives and things that could discount or disqualify us from being a part of community or creating it or stepping into leading. How did you overcome the excuse? How did you overcome the obstacles? And then what are you doing that's creating life-giving environments for people to be a part of? And that we could start with Candy, and then if you have anything, feel free to share.
I would say for us, it's just really been a matter of being available and probably really a matter of being authentic. At my house, whenever we first moved into our house, there were 11 of us, and 10 of those 11 were under the age of 21. So it didn't exactly create a clean, perfect, pristine environment. But I sat down with my kids, and we really talked about, God had really blessed us with this home, and what do we want to do with it? And so we sat down and we made kind of a mission statement for our home, that we wanted it to be a place where people felt loved, where they felt peace, which might seem impossible with that many people in the house. But I think it's been a really great experience for my children to see, just people coming in. And that close proximity really helped us in a lot of ways, because those people were in our lives and they were able to speak into my children's lives. And during those transitions when things were hard, it wasn't just me talking to them. It was a whole group of people loving them and, speaking wisdom into them. Sometimes somebody else telling your kids something is so much more than you telling your kids something, Like, oh, so-and-so told me this. I'm like, I've said that to you 1,000 times, but it sounds so much better when it comes from one of you guys. So I think just that authenticity and just realizing that you don't have to be perfect to come to my house. And, we would just say, like, if you need to have a group here, you can come here. Please come just do life with us. It's been a real gift. And we've had foster kids in our house, and it's been neat to see our life groups just really even have the opportunity to love on those kids, fight over snuggling babies during, Bible time and things like that. So it's really been a gift to us, and hopefully a gift to the people that have been able to come by. Did you say something?
Can you repeat the question?
Just if you have anything as far as like creating community and environments that are life-giving. And basically, all of you give back. So you've received something, but you've all given back something.
Yeah.
And so just how do you do that? Yeah, how? Okay. All right,
Yeah,
you
so
got it.
I think for me, just growing up kind of alone and not knowing who Jesus was and not really having that community to go to, I wanted to do that for kids who were going through or had struggles like that were, young. So I kind of grew a passion for leading students and just being there for them, showing up, being consistent. And I think that's a huge thing in anyone's life, not just students, but if you're just consistent in someone's life, just show up and be there. You don't have to, spit out the Bible verses to them or anything like that. Sometimes it's just a high five or a hug or just, hey man, I'm here for you. So that's kind of how I view it.
Alex, you got anything?
What was the question? Well, for my word today, I think it says encouragement. Make a decision. Just go for it. Stand up and do it. I think it's never late to accept Jesus in your heart. I think you have to just let him be the pilot of your life, and any action that you do or just everything in your life. Just let him be there for you. Let him make the decision for you. That's one thing. And the other thing is you gotta take the risk and just do it. Commit to do things. If your life is a circle, like we all have a life and habits, and you having the same outcome, maybe you do something different and something else will come up. My advice is give it all to God and let him drive it.
Evan or Candy, do you guys have any like final words, final advice? Anybody that's sitting there that may be going, okay, how do I get in? How do I create it? Some of them may be called to be leading a life group. Some of them may be called to just be vulnerable. There's availability, vulnerability, consistency, 3 things we heard. So any advice from you, either one of you?
I don't know if that specifically addresses that, but I would just say that what I've learned through Life Group is that there's power in the story. And you have a story, I have a story. Even just learning Evan's story this morning, it just changed how, I don't know, even how I see him and just how I see what God has done in his life. So my encouragement would just be to be vulnerable. Don't rob somebody of the story that you have that might really help them get free. I just think that you all have something that you could share with someone, and God can redeem anything. That's what I feel all the time, and I try to tell my children, like in the middle of hard things, God can redeem anything, and he uses the broken places of our lives to do the most. And so just say, be vulnerable. Don't be afraid to just step out. I think you'd be surprised at how many people want to love you and just be with you.
I guess my advice would be just to, like she said, step out and just give it a go. It can be uncomfortable. This is super uncomfortable for me, but when there's bigger things that can happen when you just step out in faith and be uncomfortable for 20 minutes on a stage. And maybe you don't have a community right now, but get in community, because you're going to find people who want to see you succeed and see you grow and see you become what Jesus wants you to be, and that's just someone who loves people and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Man, that's awesome. Come on, can we give them a hand? Thank you guys. Y'all are fantastic. Love you guys. There's so much power in story and in friends like family, and that's honestly the goal this morning was just that this is our last week for Friends Like Family. Next week, we're going to be celebrating our 10 year, and it's going to be awesome. And we got one service, and that's good. It's good. We can give up for that. But honestly, just this last week, sharing the benefit of Friends Like Family and being able to see that this is something that's not just preached, but it's lived. And when Paul said, I love you so much that I gave you the gospel and my life. And I'm praying that this would be a church, that we would be a church that would say yes to the gospel. We're going to share the gospel. We're unashamed of the gospel. We're going to preach the word. We're going to share how good Jesus truly is. And then we're also going to share our life and things that aren't going well. and things I might be struggling with and things that I might be. And when you do that, there's this power that happens in that mix of people that when the world looks in and they see the power of God and the vulnerability of man that gets put together, they're like, I don't know what to do with that, but I need that. I need something that's real and authentic that I can relate to, but it's hope-filled and it's the light of the world called Jesus. I need the gospel and I need your story. And so, man, sometimes we can lean towards everything's so bad all the time and we lack the joy of the good news. And the world looks at our lives and they're like, that's not a life I want to live. It doesn't look very joy-filled. It looks like a mess, you know, and if we're there, it's cool. Jesus can handle that. But then on this side, if we're not careful, we look like we've got it all together and everything's good and I'm high-five, joy-filled all the time, and people can't relate to the vulnerability of your life because they're like, oh man, well, hopefully when I get my act together, then I can look like that. And when you do both, when you say, man, God is good, man, I've been struggling with this, but man, let me tell you how good Jesus is. People are like, what? You got hope in the middle of a storm. You've got faith you're believing in things you cannot see. You've got hope. How do you live that way? And you're like, it's Jesus. It's the gospel. This is good news. And so every single one of them have lived it out. So many have lived it out right here in this place. But man, let's be a church that leaves this place ready to share our story in the gospel. It's powerful. Revelation 12:11. You can throw that up. It says, and they conquered him. I love this. They conquered the enemy. They conquered Satan by the blood of the Lamb, the power of the gospel, the sacrifice of Jesus, and the word of not Jesus' testimony, but theirs. And when you grab a hold of the blood of the Lamb, the gospel, the good news of Jesus, and you have a word to share because your story is a message that the gospel can be transported on, when we do this, the enemy has no way to win. The enemy has no way to win. And so we're going to do that. Can we pray? And then I'm going to invite Justin up here for some announcements. God, I thank you for what you're doing in this house, Lord. I pray, God, that we would be filled with faith this morning, that as we leave this place, God, that they would be filled with joy. Every story, every moment, every act of vulnerability that was shared on this platform, God, I pray that it would overflow into every story and into our Wesley Chapel in Tampa. God, I pray that you would continue to share what you're doing in and through people's lives. God, that we would be equipped and called to go and be the church you've called us to be. In Jesus' name, amen.